There's something I don't understand, but I'm like, hold on, they don't have two heads. Whatever they're talking about, they've learned it. Let's not act like
this didn't exist.
Me being woke means that I would then vote Conservative.
Do you know what upsets me the most? And I say this all the time. We had the four options was Liz Truss, Rishi, Boris again, I think.
Yeah.
Who was the other one?
Is it Defence Secretary? Penny Mordaunt?
Right.
Yeah, Penny Mordaunt.
Those are our options. No one in there moves me.
Yeah.
To the slightest. Why are they our options?
It's like discussing Brexit in the confines of Brexit isn't helpful. You need to look at Brexit as a general topic as European history.
Yeah. Time is money, so spend yours listening to me talk about things that are important to me and my people.
Time is money.
Welcome to the second series of Maya's Minutes. I don't have a name for this series yet, but I'll probably put that in the next couple episodes. This series we're going to be focusing all on politics, economy, race, class, and all the kind of stuff that I want to talk about all day every day, but I can't talk about with everybody. But I've got someone with me that I talk about it with all the time. My wonderful resident guest for this second series is none other than Basayo Twins, who is, I don't even know how to describe you because the credentials, I don't have enough of them. You know the ones? But she's literally just, I describe you in my head as like the cultural commentator of politics and economy, because that was when I first connected with you from that. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously I had you on my podcast back in the day, and then when I started seeing you do literal translations of what's happening in politics and where we're at now, that's when I was like, no, I need to keep this one closed still, because I'm going to need her on the next podcast. That's where we're at now. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Yes, please.
First of all, I wanted to ask you about how you got into politics. I know I've asked you this loads of times privately, but like, you know, looking back, especially for me, obviously I feel like, because I'm not represented in politics, and I feel like I'm sometimes actively pushed out of the conversation, not just me, but obviously women like me. I'm always so mind blown when I come across younger people, let alone younger people from ethnic backgrounds who are really heavily involved, understand, and can actually conversate and make banter. That's even what you do as well about like what's going on, because that means you must really understand it.
To joke about
make banter. So I want to know how it even started. How did you get there? Because you know, like have you watched King Richard with Will Smith and Serena? And when the man in the tennis court and he's just like, she's so special, and Will Smith's like, why do you keep saying she's special? What's special about her? Obviously because she's black. So I imagine you must get that. Everyone must be like, oh wow, you're really into politics.
I think it's what you said as well, people being like, oh, why is anyone look like you interested? Like,
this is it,
and it kind of makes them feel like, because they're not interested, it's like, am I missing something?
No,
you know, you always feel like if
you should be.
Everyone should be involved. So I think I get a lot of like, why are you interested? And I think also because outside of politics, if I don't speak about it, it's like, how can you have such an interest in non-political stuff and politics?
That's it.
They feel like you've got to have the same.
Fit in one box.
And it's like, no, I really do like politics hard, but then also I like other things as well.
Yeah, turn it up.
So whichever day, I can give you something different if you want.
Yeah, I hear that. And that's another appeal, because that makes you so relatable to the people that you translate for, basically. When you go on your page, you'll use things like tutus now and bruv, man, just about like these lot in politics. Do you know what I mean? And that's good, because we can understand that, or even if we can't understand it, we want to know now, because you diluted it basically 100%. To the point where it makes sense now.
100%,
So how did that start for you, and what's it been? Like, what was it from young? Were you...
I think from a young age, I've always loved history. I've always been into history and like current affairs. I just thought the news was interesting. Parents, obviously, who come from Nigeria and now here, they always have a particular perspective on things. And it makes you feel like if someone talks about a recession, they're going to talk about from when they're coming from somewhere. So you're just like, oh, right, okay, this topic has so many different layers to it that is so interesting. But it was only until really Brexit that I cared about British politics. Before that, I was like, yeah, I love history. When I was learning in school, I really loved history. Yeah, but it's only till Brexit that I was like, you know what, let me understand what's going on. Because when they were talking, it was such a big deal. I was like, how can I not know anything about this? And I was president of my student union. And so when I was president of my student union, you have to be very in the know, because there's so many things that affect the kind of my role and the policies that we want to develop, and other students, and understanding what their politics happen in their countries and how it affects the UK. So all of a sudden I really had to really understand that actually Brexit's going to impact people. So actually, what are the policies, what's going to change, all that kind of stuff. And then I was like, I don't think a lot of people are really talking about this because it's serious. And when something is serious, but no one around you is talking about it, you're like, you start bringing it up and you're like, I don't understand. So I'm like, okay, let me break it down.
Yes,
basically,
exactly.
this is what's happening. Then everyone else started going, oh, really? Okay. And I think what was interesting is that once it was broken down, people had such an opinion on it.
This is it. Exactly.
And I was like, rah, so if someone just tells it to you the way you've described and you will get involved, then let me just try and do that.
If it was accessible, then a lot more people would know and care, and a
lot of people are so political. It's just that they don't see the conversation as political.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you look at how, obviously it's a bad example, but postcode wars, for example, that's majority young men in environments or areas, and they don't like the other side, the opposition, or whatever. That is literally politics, isn't it?
Basically,
it's exactly what happens across
and you
the
feel
road.
like you're the most worthy group to rule the streets, and they think they are. And if you can't articulate yourself, you're going to go into battle.
Yeah, literally, exactly that. And then some of your side might go, some of my side might go, and then someone pays someone off to do you know what I mean? It's exactly the same, but it's just not accessible, I would say. But that makes me wonder, so you said when you were young, you used to be interested in like news and all that kind of stuff. I understand as you got older, and especially with Brexit, like you needed to know. But when you're a kid, how was that interesting for you?
I'd be lying if I said that there was something that made me interested in it. Okay. Like specifically. Like what I think is so interesting is the fact that I grew up where I grew up and I liked politics has made how I manifest it look this way. Whereas if I, for example, was a private school kid who didn't live in London and isolated, I would probably be a politician. I love it so much that I was always going to love politics. I think it was so in me, or that way, that my environment will just determine how it plays out. Wow. So do you know what I'm saying? So if I was in there, maybe if I was one of the man them doing whatever it is, maybe I would be that person who's like trying to organise the streets and be like, I don't know.
It would have to come out in some way.
And I feel like that's how much it came out of me, because sometimes I'm like, I don't know, like I really get fixated. I spend hours sometimes online.
I see it, boy. I see it on Instagram. You know what I mean? And you're literally having a conversation with yourself.
With myself.
Because you're the only one posting.
And I'll be walking home and I'll be thinking, nah. Breaking down a policy thinking, nah, guys, I've got this, you know.
Okay.
And it's mad, but I'm like, I can't, that's not something I can go and teach someone to, like, you know, how to get involved in it.
Because it's a passion and it's a genuine curiosity.
100%. Yeah, it's so weird. Yeah.
Do you feel, though, even when, I know this is a small thing, but you see, like, when I sometimes catch it on anywhere, like the news, for example, and I see little clips of them when they're in the House of Commons and stuff like that, and they're all getting up and shouting and being like, order, 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 heckling, really. Yeah. Don't you feel like that is so shocking because that is the way things are decided?
Yeah, it's so funny. It's really funny because when every group of people have their own way they perform things that looks ridiculous to other people, no matter if you call it elite or not, if you're not part of that group, you're going to see it as so random and so strange and actually almost just, I don't know the word is bush. Like it's very like for people who are so because for people who undermine people for not being like of like elite, literally, when if you see them how they act, you're gonna start laughing and going, they all do it the same. They just use different words. Exactly. They do it in this particular space, but really and truly, there's nothing different. But then what that does to me is lowers the barrier to entry. I feel like
I agree
because I don't rate you as much as I thought I had to rate you. Or this is most of what politics is. Oh, I'm only 2 steps behind.
This is it. And I think that's the key point. I think that is exactly what accessibility is. You're made to feel diminished and undermined by the fact that you're not represented in any of these spaces. Then when you are, they laugh at how you talk and you don't know this, you don't know that. Like, that's their persona. So then you start thinking, oh, this must be bare complicated. So this is just not for me then. And that's how they keep you out of it.
No, exactly.
And you've just challenged that by getting yourself in it.
Yep. And one of the reasons why I like, as I said before, articulating the way I do is because I'm like, that is how I have to understand it. There's a lot of things that I do not understand unless it's broken down. So if there's something I don't understand, but I'm like, hold on, they don't have two heads. Whatever they're talking about, they've learned it. They weren't born into this knowledge. So if I have to now go and learn it the difficult way, just to make it so simple and go, oh, what they're trying to say is just traders just buying and selling of goods. They will come and use big English to say buying and selling of goods. So now everyone feels like, wow, what's that? What's all that stuff? And then now you start using that in your normal language and it's like, okay, other people can engage. So I think it's just, I don't mind doing the big work to be like, what do the complicated words mean? Put them into their simple form and be like, okay, now guys, this is basically what they're trying to say.
Exactly.
And what they're trying to say in simple terms isn't as big as what they're trying to make it look like they're saying.
Literally.
Yeah.
So just a brief curveball, because I didn't put this in the agenda, so you're not going to be prepared for it. When now, all these however many years on of Brexit, what do you think? Is it good?
It's not so funny. I was making a post about that, which I'm gonna make a post, and now you've made me feel like I really need to make a post. And basically, all my drafts, there's so many posts, but I just haven't been posting as much as before.
Yeah, we're going to come on to that as well. In a minute, yeah.
But yeah, ultimately, Brexit hasn't been good for the UK.
Did you think it would be at the beginning?
No, I was always a Remainer, I guess, in that respect. The thing is, Brexit could have been good in some way if you had done it a certain way, potentially for some people. Remain could have been bad for some people if you kept it the same as well. So there was always going to be pros and cons of both. However, I think based on the fact that it wasn't about the genuine interest of England, it was about personalities. It was about people having a particular agenda that they wanted to put across so they could be the face of it. This is why we're here now, because there was no backup plan. If they really wanted Brexit to work, where's all your plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G? All of a sudden, no one knows what to do after Brexit has been done. But you were campaigning thinking there was a plan for it. That's my issue is that you're campaigning like there's a plan. Now that it's done, everyone's looking at each other like, oh, okay. So you didn't know when you're campaigning for Brexit that it would affect Ireland. Big Ireland, you didn't know until you start. Do you know what I mean? It just feels very like, this was not about England.
But this is what I'm saying. I struggle because I see people like you, and I feel like you're the only one I personally know. But since you've inspired a lot of people to have a lot more engagement in politics and stuff and take this role basically. And they're the first people to be like, you can't. I've even seen you say this before as well, that someone like myself, I'll just completely dismiss it. I'm just like, none of these people care about me. None of these people want to facilitate anything good for me. I'm not represented by them. When they say we, they're not talking about me. So I'm going to switch off. And that's not the best way to be, because that's ignorant. And then something will happen that will really affect me. And I'll be like, oh my God, I had no idea about this, because I've shut everything off. But this is exactly why I shut off, because I look at things and I'm just like, it's clear to me that you aren't acting in the interests of all of us, and it's clear to me that you can only be in this position because you've had umpteen privileges upon you, and you continue to take advantage of that. So why would I listen to you?
100%. But what you got to see with politics is that there's politics in terms of what its purpose is supposed to be, which is to kind of organise society, right? And then the second politics is that there's particular roles that people have and personalities. So the concept of politics works in the sense that everyone's going to always try and be like, what do you think is best for your country? However, when you've got personalities, don't forget, even if they don't care, to the degree that there's still a voting system, they still can't control every piece of the puzzle.
True.
So where you don't get involved in the discussions, fine. Let them have their little, self-vanity projects, that's fine. But they can't control all pieces. So what I see it as is, I don't have to be heavily involved in the performative way, but it's just one of many levers I could use to have influence over my life. Why not use it?
Totally.
If you could, it's like saying that you could be part of the processes in your hospital, and when they're dealing with your drugs or your diagnosis, you would want some sort of just oversight to say, okay, if I could, let me see it. It's not everything, but why would you leave your life into the hands of someone else to that degree? Even if you could push it just a small bit, that's your one job. Then you save 80% to what you do in your day-to-day. And you can save 20% to faith or meditation or whatever it is that people have. But why would you go, this is a place blindly, that I could affect change? We know that they don't care about the issues. Some people don't, not everyone, obviously some politicians might not care about issues, but that means that they're still open to running with an issue if they think it's big enough to get them in. So in as far as it gets them into that role,
even for the sake of their vanity project,
they will adopt it. So in that, you have to play them back, and that's what the masses aren't doing. Play them back. And be like, oh, I know you don't care. In fact, I will vote for anyone. I don't even care what you look like. But what is going to be fundamental is that you lot have to push this policy through. Then you guys can play. But I can't afford for you guys to play when you haven't got my bare minimums through.
Very true. And we cut off our own nose to spite our face because we don't even push that. We just let it off at the door, which is what they want, because they don't want to have the help, don't want to help the masses and all the rest of it. So we don't even use that small meal ticket you could to get in.
Just push it slightly, just to push slightly. All you really got to be like is, for example, people are talking about Labour as the opposition and whatever, people care about Labour or not care about Labour. Whether or not you like Keir Starmer should be, it's important to some degree, but also it's like, if they remove Keir Starmer, they still have to push through Labour policy. So I'm less concerned about who's running for Labour now, is what policy is going to go through, that whoever they choose, they still have to endorse this policy. So I'm okay, I'm safe. Not that if Keir's there or not there, that's the difference between systemic racism and not. That's a lot of power to put into a few individuals' hands.
Yeah, but I think that's because buying into a person's personality is more accessible and easier to do than buying into all of this the stuff. So that's why people buy into this person, because all right, cool, all this policy stuff's going over my head, but is he cool or not? That's what I go with. Do you know what I mean?
But it's the same short-sightedness of knowing, how do you know he's cool?
Exactly.
And then it's like, politics isn't one of those things that is as passive as people want it to be. That's the problem. It's like, I get what everyone's saying. Trust me, I'm just coming from a place of privilege that I even understand it, and I'm involved in it. And to some degree, some of my work revolves around those things. Fine. However, it's complicated. There's no way to get around it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wish I could be like, guys, don't worry. It doesn't pay you. There's no way to get around it other than to keep clued up to the extent that you can.
You're right.
Because that's all you can do.
And also another thing I'd say as well, just as like a general thing that I've done since meeting you, I was very struck by everything you said. What you just said, obviously we've had conversations of way before, and I was like, yeah, she's right. Like, why am I being so under informed on this? Like, I have no clue about any of this, and I need to know, because especially from the history perspective, everything that's happened before will repeat itself, and you will see it, and across countries. And for so long I was really angry, well, not even angry, but it's just another form of feeling not acknowledged in school. If you are a person of colour, you don't learn about any of your own history, really. You learn about what happened in Britain, and Tudors and Elizabethans and Henry VIII, whatever one he is, Victorian. That's what you learn. And like, I can't really relate to that. Do you know what I mean? Even from the sense of like the suffragettes and like feminism and stuff. Again, that's not representative of me. So I need to go and find out about my people, so to speak, and what's happening there, and what happened, and why that's now led to this. And what it's given me from doing that is it's been able to give me such a perspective on even like my parents or grandparents, and understand where they're coming from, because of course they were like that, and that's why how they interacted with me, because what did they face when they left the Caribbean, or when they left Punjab, or when do you know what I mean? It really opens things up a lot. So I would just say that whilst it is daunting, and it still is, I'm not still on the stage of like being able to watch a House of Commons debate and feel okay with that. I will read a book, like that book I showed you, Prisoner's Geography. I will read that, and it will take my time, and I will like digest it, and then I will have a bit more understanding when something comes up that I see. At least I'll be able to have a bit of background to it. 100%. Do you know what I mean? And that's okay. You can come at your own stage, because it's very overwhelming to go straight into your level, because that's very high for me. So I need to be able to ease in a little bit. And I think people don't think they have that option. People think it's just like, well, if I don't know, I'm never gonna be like that, so I'm just gonna forget it now. But you can. There is the option to ease in. 100%.
And I think where obviously life happens to people as well, and you get tired, and like posting things is long, but sometimes I need to remind myself that the people I'm amongst, or the topics that are being had, sometimes I could be like, oh, I'm not talking about it in such a complicated way, so maybe I'm not providing a quality resource or something. Sometimes I look the other way and go, okay, these are what other people are doing, or this is what the news is saying, and compared to them, I'm not giving the real play-by-play, or like in the most complicated language or whatever. But then sometimes when you just post something that's very simple, and someone goes, oh my God, like before you said this, I did not listen, I could not. I'm like, do you know what? I need to sometimes remember
who your audience is.
And how appreciative people can be, to be like, wow, thank you. Like, I did not know what that budget meant, but now that you said it, I get it.
I'm so happy you said that, because that's exactly what I wanted to talk about next. You have a quote picture that you've made on your Instagram saying, we only read what we've already been told to believe. So what do you mean by that? Because that was something simple that stuck with me, and I was like, yeah, she's right. I have my own interpretation of it, but I want to know from the horse's mouth.
Basically, that came from a sentiment around, when I do see some political stuff online or conversations, it's people trying to affirm what they already believe. And it's like, I don't like this group, or I believe in this, so let me read a book that I know is going to make confirmation bias.
It's the same way as when you're having a conversation with someone like Piers Morgan, and he'll be like, well, what are the statistics for that? And then it's like, you can't find any statistics to back that up, but you know in your heart and your soul that that's true. And then he's like, see, there's no statistics, so we can't think it's true. That's how I see it.
So, but it's kind of like, it's also in terms of being like, if you want to get into politics, but you already feel like the government doesn't do enough for young people, you're going to Google government
not doing enough for young people.
Do you know what I mean? Rather than go, what is the government policy? Let me read it and interpret it neutrally, type of thing, and then contextualize and go, actually, it's fallen short of practice versus the theory or the design of it and stuff like that. Not to get too caught up in that, but I just felt like a lot of people were reading things to affirm ideas that they already have, and they weren't trying to learn. People aren't trying to be like, actually, let me learn about this independently. We all have our own biases on experience with it, and things that we have to bring to the table whether or not we want to. But sometimes I feel like this is where we get into like the clickbait type of politics where it's just saying things to provoke people, and because it's online, people are trying to say things that are provocative, and it's like, down with these people are this, people are that. And it's like, don't get me wrong, even if they are or aren't, you're not giving people the play-by-play of how you've come to that argument or what has been included into that conversation, or we could read the same thing and interpret it completely differently. Do you know what I'm saying? So I just felt like I don't want to influence a generation of people to kind of just have particular views on people. I just feel like have the information. However you then decide to side with, I don't mind. I actually don't care. I'll rather have people who are just interested or people who have an opinion than people who have particular opinion because they think it's what the masses want or it's what's popular online.
So in that vein, how do you feel about this new rise? I don't know if you saw Zizi Mills's documentary on it, of young black and right wing people.
Is it?
Because I remember when, very good question. But I remember when it was time to vote, and I messaged you like, "Who should I vote for?" And I was just like, it's hard because I can't remember his name, the politician, the black politician, and he went on again on Zizi Mills's show, and his name Sean something.
Sean Bailey.
Yes, and he was talking about it, and he was just like. He was convincing me as he was just like, he was like, I want to I want to change the life of young people. I want to do this. And I was like, so I messaged you. Like, are you seeing this? Like, is this a thing? Is it loud? And then you were just like, oh, be honest. Like, he's saying good stuff. Yeah. And then you were like, but from my soul, I don't know if I could vote for Conservatives. Yeah. So it's hard because you're very clued up. Yeah. And you're just said you shouldn't have, preconceptions and all the rest of it. But that's bringing in soul now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think with the Sean Bailey situation, it's not even that I liked him or anything like that, but I think it's one of those ones where it's like, if you take the time up to listen to people that you think you won't like, you'll be shocked that you can like them. I think that's what that is. And I think that's when I always listen to people who I don't necessarily agree with or I don't think I'm going to agree with. When I listen, I'm like, what you said was calm. But then what happens is, again, the purpose of that conversation was to make him be perceived as someone that black people could vote for. Exactly. So I'm not going to now go, oh, you're a great person. It's going to be like, what you said was great, but
I know your agenda.
That's the agenda of what you're saying. Then on top of that, okay, you want to do that. Before this, have you been doing that, number one? Is your track record, or is it something that you hope to do? Everyone hopes to do it when they get into the role. Okay, then why did you choose that party to do it with? Because optics are a big thing. As you said about personality, so is the history of the party. Yeah. It's still in our consciousness. So there's no point even saying, oh, there's a point in saying you want to do good for whatever party, but you can't then be so naive as to not understand the
why
relationship.
People will be against that.
That's my issue. That's the issue I have with, I guess, people on the Conservative Party who might be ethnic minority background. Sometimes they're not as empathetic to why people don't vote for them, and they make it like say people are dumb. Yes. Like all you do is vote Labour because you're sheep. There's a conversation to be had about it. Okay. However, let's not act like
this didn't exist.
Me being woke means that I would then vote Conservative. There's no correlation with me being woke, and that's just me trying to be different sometimes. Oh, man. I know sometimes it's like, if I voted Conservative because I genuinely believed in them, cool. But sometimes I feel like just because I don't agree with what Labour's doing doesn't mean now I'm pro-Tory, or if just because I like an individual in the Tory party doesn't mean now I'm against. So they're not mutually exclusive things. You can genuinely respect people in the Conservative Party for the sake of this conversation, but never vote for them. And I get it.
Boy,
because
I hear that.
Politics is complicated.
Yeah, true. Based on what we just said, are you saying that because the Conservatives would be more inclined to let in minority ethnic people because then it makes them look better? And takes away some of the bad stuff that's happened, but the person who's there is essentially like tokenism, really.
Well, I would say there's a good reason to believe that if there's a lot of ethnic minority people in the Conservative Party, knowing that they can get their policies across to people from people who look like people that they're trying to convince to vote for them. Yeah. Why would you not use that tool?
This is it. Yeah. That was answered in a very political way. You don't say yes.
Why would you? And I get it, and I feel like that makes sense. However, the people that now take up that mantle, you're not anyone's his leader. So if you do that, be prepared to also get dissed and rejected. But also for us as well, if it's really for the benefit of black people, also think, am I always going to diss everything that they say because it's coming from a Conservative? Yeah. Well, if there was a policy that banged around race and it was better than the Labour Party, and you think race is the most important factor in society, then what are the basis of you? How are you voting?
Yeah, it's true.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Luckily, I've never been in that position because they've always never done anything. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it's ever been that, high stakes.
But I hear you. Yeah, this is the thing. And this is why, again, I I've mentioned this in my previous series, but it's hard because I was very clear from the jump. Rishi Sunak is not my leader. Do you know what I mean? Like on paper, because I live in Britain, he is, but not like I would never think that would be someone that I would vote for. Obviously, best to have a bad bunch. That's not hard, but I wouldn't look at him and be like, oh yeah, this is, you know, representation coming through. Wow, with brown prime minister. That's how I don't know how I see it. However, when I openly say that, I get a lot of attack from people, especially Black and Asian people. I've had multiple DMs from people being like, well, how's this? What's this? When Obama got in, this, and it's very different. Very different.
Do you think it's different?
Wow, okay, this is a new turn.
Do you think it's different?
Yes, I think this is different. Okay. Obama is my boy, and I will not be able to cope with. That's not where we're going today.
No. I'm not. You know, it's not even a case of me being pro Rishi. It might be a case of reflecting on your feelings towards Obama.
Okay.
More so than Rishi. Like the Rishi thing might be like, true, he's not your leader, but maybe it's a case of...
Look, Obama's proximity to whiteness is what made him president material, because he had that sympathy and patience and empathy for the white majority who oppress Black people. That's clear to me, and I know that. However, Obama also experienced being othered because he was mixed race. So he understands that plight as well. And he's open about that. And, you know, even from his own grandparents, he understands certain ignorances and all the rest of it. And he's married a woman who I can't fault. Like, I try. I listen to her stuff. I try and hear little things, but I cannot fault her. She is through and through, from Chicago, real woman, 10 out of 10. Rishi has come from privilege, not directly. I'm not taking away from the fact that he's worked hard and all the rest of it. He's not a representative of the majority of Asians that I personally know or that live in the UK. And so when he's now put on a pedestal for British convenience, and he's made out to be like, see, we're not racist here, look who we've got as Prime Minister, I take issue with that, because they wouldn't let the quote unquote average smart Asian or Black person who doesn't speak that way, who isn't in those environments, who doesn't have those access points to certain environments. Like you said, if you went to private school, maybe you might have been a politician or whatever. Someone who doesn't fit that mold wouldn't be in that position, and Rishi was and is, and you know, it's hard because I'm sure he's a cool guy. I just can't handle him being seen as representation. That's my issue.
I hear you. I do think, and I don't know, obviously how everyone came about Rishi and everything is different, so we don't know what we're like. It's like for like information.
My mum's got a completely different perspective,
you know what I mean?
By the way,
and I don't have a strong opinion for or against Rishi. Like, I don't really see him as different. I just see it as circumstantial. Prime Minister,
he wasn't chosen.
Because of
someone
a
dropped
party that Conservative Party that was just in the dirt, and he was able to gather some sort of confidence enough of the party. That's how I see it as.
But not in the first time. He didn't get chosen.
Exactly. So when you think about that, it's also a case of, it wasn't like, there was a fast track in the sense of Rishi came out of nowhere for many of us. Like, he was some young guy. All of a sudden, Savage Javid, I think, resigned as Chancellor, and then you came in and it was like, okay, Rishi. Then we clocked he's rich and he might have a bit of swag, because everyone's like, oh, he's, compared to Boris, he was whatever.
But again, not hard. Have you seen Boris?
No, it's not hard. However, what I have learned about racialized experiences in the UK is that depending on the group or where you live in society, you have a completely different experience of that racial barrier. So if someone who's working class and Black or Asian, you exist in a particular realm of racism. And that becomes the most important type for you. Whereas if you're maybe a middle class person or don't live in England, a white majority, you also experience racism in many different ways. However, it's not necessarily
as blatant,
income or wealth related. So for a person who hasn't even got the wealth, you're looking at them like, whatever your struggle is, at least you have.
Thank you.
And so no matter what you do, it's not like for like. I'm not going to sit and cry on each other's shoulder. It's not. We're not doing that thing. However, in the context that he exists in,
he's still othered.
He's probably still othered in that respect. And also for his people who he thinks he's representing, his people who he represents, it's probably some sort of like, okay, raw maybe. But for the rest of us, we don't have to take him on. But who said that? Sometimes I feel like there is this whole presumption that the whole of England generally feels like it's a step up for us. There might be a few people that say it, but sometimes I feel like because we're aware of that's what people could say, we say it first.
That's it.
The first people I saw to say that Rishi isn't the token Asian person was from us as soon as he got elected. A white person, I didn't hear a white person say it. Not like they're not saying it.
No.
And I'm not on Twitter as well, so Twitter's a place where it's scary. I get. But for me, it's like, now we're making statements based on an attack that hasn't even happened, and now we're running with that attack.
Right,
and now
right.
Rishi's here like, I don't think I ever once said this is for the Asians.
No.
I don't think I always said this for my family.
No.
So you lot are now rejecting me on the basis of something I never even led for.
It's true, you're right.
But Obama made it part of his campaign, which is not a bad thing. And don't get me wrong, we're not American. So there's a lot of people in America who are like, I hear what you're saying, but because international politics is most important to me, the fact that he's just still bombing certain countries means that he's not for us. So that's why I find it interesting. It just depends on when it exists.
You're right.
Do you know what I mean?
I take everything you say, 100%. And I'm not just saying that because I like you, but honestly, I agree with everything you're saying. And I do find it difficult because I'm a huge Obama, like I DM them regularly. They don't reply, obviously, but I do. And I really stand for them. I read all their books. But it's not true. It's not, so I know it's true. Like he goes into depth about it, and it's banter. Like I've seen clips of Michelle Obama on Jimmy Fallon's show, and him and Jimmy Fallon being like, when you killed Osama, did you guys sleep with each other? Like that kind of banter. It's like, are you all right? This is still a death of a person. And we know that the corruption and that what led to him being in that position was mainly the West's fault. And anyway, that's not for today. But my point is, I hear you. Like it's very, very multiple sided. And you're so right. Like, I've never seen first-handedly Rishi say this is for the Asians or anyone really say that. I just feel it's the same argument as someone black going into Love Island. Really, if we deduce it down to that, it's like, okay, you haven't said you're doing this for black people or Asian people. When there's someone Asian, you say you haven't said that, but you also know that the premise of this show is
white gays.
And so by default, whether you've asked for it or not, if you've gone forward, you know who you're supposed to be really representing. So it's like, I know he hasn't said it, and in a way that's a bit worse because you know that people are expecting that of you, or you're in, do you know what I mean?
I mean, if I have a question for you, for example, right?
Ask me now.
If you were, for example, with what you know now, and your job was to kind of like do what's right for ethnic minority, let's say women from ethnic minority backgrounds, how would you go about doing it? And then when you answer how you go about, tell me how you go about doing it. How would you go about changing things, but also making sure we're taking with you on that journey and that we back it?
That is hard because everybody's coming from different entry points.
But what would you do? You have to do something. Just say what you're going to, just say, even if it's not one of everything, something you're going to do.
I would start with education.
Okay,
I would start with giving women everywhere a standardized education of the basic level of this is what cannot and should not happen to you, and if this is happening, this isn't okay. Not to judge your family or whatever, but with that, this is why this might be happening. These are the countries and the environments and the blah 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 traumas and whatever. This is why this could be happening. But with this knowledge now, you should know this shouldn't be happening. So all of the allowance that we have been doing for centuries and centuries, we need to stop. We can't be okay with that. We can't be permitting it because a lot of times I find women can sometimes be the biggest oppressors of women. So we need to, that's the first problem, I think, because we all need to unite together to be against this one problem. And now when we've reunited, then it's gonna be a lot easier. Then at that point I'm just like, all right, cool, so next step, men, how do you know what I mean? And I can work through it. That process of the education is very, very hard. 1000%. And I don't know how I would really formulate that and put that across and you know, be like a drip thing, and that's something I think about regularly. But that would be where my head's at. That the first thing is the education. I need to get everyone on the same page, because unless everyone's behind me or behind this idea, we're not going to get anywhere. Go on, what's your next step?
And I'm going to say, okay, if you do that, right, so you like PM as PM, that's what you're going to do when you come in. But we're also in a cost of living crisis, and where there's also, I guess, the Russia and Ukraine war, whatever.
That's bad. Not
like whatever's in a bad thing, but whichever way you talk about it. Some people call it Ukraine-Russia war, we call it Russia and aggression, whatever. I just call it Putin's on Putin, And then also you've got environmentalism, you've got like climate change and all that kind of stuff.
Football in Qatar.
Football going to Qatar. English language kind of coming extinct. Well, not extinct, but not at the rate they want it at. They want to do. You've got all this kind of stuff, you got Brexit happening, right? You've got the North, you need to level up agenda. And you've come in as the next PM and you want to run on a manifesto to help help women get education so they can fit the patriarchy. And there's half the country's male or not women, right? So by starting off that in your manifesto, that's what you feel like, knowing that you've only got attention for 4 years, and are you going to choose that as your item to talk about?
Yeah. Because when I do that, that's going to pave way for everyone to understand all these other issues.
That's what you think.
Yeah.
But you have to convince me that it's it. The issue isn't what you think is wrong or right.
No.
The issue is you've got to do enough to get voted in so that I believe that, okay, it's important, then you've got to get me to vote for you. But then even to get me to there, you might engage me on a different topic. Yeah. So then all roads lead to that.
True.
Then when you do that, someone out there's going to be like, but also black men there's knife crime. They're being killed.
Yeah.
So how are you going to now engage them?
Because with the education I've got of the women, they're now going to... Because a lot, like I said about women being big oppressors of women, there's some mums who are not doing...
But whilst you're educating, people are dying. So the question is, the education takes time to learn, to understand, to then implement, and then to see the gains of that. Yeah. Whereas you got 4 years.
Yeah. So I need to do something quicker.
There's people are dying tonight, and you have to intervene.
Yeah.
And the point is, it's not like what you're saying is wrong. The point is that even to get to where you need to be respected in what you're trying to say, you have to touch on topics that most people want to understand. Because that's how we vote.
You're right.
Even a lot of women might not vote on women's issues because when I'm thinking about all the issues in society, I'm not going to vote for you as a woman. It doesn't make sense. It's like, it can for some people, but that's probably why there's not like a major party in the UK that is the women's party, the major party, because
there needs to be enough engagement
in a broad spectrum of their life for them to vote on it. And then on top of that, you've got...
And I thought that's the problem.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's besides
then you've got
the point,
people who are on the ground going, look at her views. Does she think she's representing us? Yeah. And you're thinking... No, and this by no means, I don't even think Rishi's gone that far. I don't think he's even like, oh my God, I'm not victim.
No,
but I'm
but
saying
you're giving
that
a good
when I do realistically,
yeah.
and I think that's what happens with politics, sometimes when I go, the reason why sometimes I have empathy for politicians who care, but they don't get what they need is because I'm thinking, if I today had to write,
trust me, a
manifesto for society, pick my priorities, and then decide how I'm going to be presented, a lot of how I would like to be presented to get your votes would move me away from who I am.
Exactly.
I will have to be more charismatic than I actually am.
Yeah.
Or I would have to emphasize certain people's ideas just to be like, I need them on my side.
I'd have to go straight in with the whole energy bills and everything and give everyone £60 a month, which is what they're doing.
You would?
Be left. I would have to. I wouldn't want to.
But someone's going to say, but as someone who's not white, the first time you got into office and you're giving me £60 energy bill.
Yeah, you're right, exactly. And that's what I just said about Rishi. I hear you. Obviously, I understand, but I'm just angry that this is...
I hear you.
Do you know what upsets me the most? And I say this all the time. We had the 4 options was Liz Truss, Rishi, Boris again, I think.
Yeah.
And who was the other one?
Is it Defence Secretary? Penny Mordaunt?
Right.
Yeah, Penny Mordaunt.
Those are our options. No one in there moves me.
Yeah.
To the slightest. Why are they our options? And I know for me, it's like, oh, who are you to say that? Blah, blah, blah. You don't even... Like, that could be better coming from you because you actually understand like politics. And that. But for me, like as the average person, I'm just like, mate, why are these the only people that we have on I think offer?
Your question came from the Tory party itself. They don't know. The thing about this been so funny about this year has been like, the reason why it's been mad is because every party has their madness, but when your party doesn't even understand the madness that's coming from their own party, the Tory party are like, I genuinely don't understand why we've got these options. That's why for the first time, it's all of us versus MPs who are there. Because the people on the ground are like, I have no idea why these are options. Because remember, they're the ones who put themselves forward. We can only vote for who's available, who puts themselves forward. So it's like, and this is why Britain's in this ideological chaos, because the Conservative Party have had to do so much to get so many different votes when they don't merge together.
Yeah.
The Brexit people that came on board are not the people that are going to consistently follow you throughout non-Brexit time. They only cared because they wanted to leave the EU. Outside of the EU, they can't align with you. You don't even care about their areas. You don't even invest in their areas. And yet you needed them to vote. So that's what the issue is now. You've got a lot of people from the centre in the Conservative Party now because Tony Blair, from his era and Gordon Brown, they pushed everything centre. So that's why Cameron and that came, because it was like, England's in the centre. So that's why it didn't really matter who our MP was or Prime Minister, because
everyone's going to follow the same
pattern. It was being like right wing, but having socially left certain things. And it's like, yeah, cool. But now it was like, you've got real Nigel Farage's pack that came through Brexit. And then you've got the Conservatives who are like, really like, they want high-end British society. They don't like the whole immigration. Again. They got really bad immigration rules and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, mate.
You've got this like, it's supposed to be like, they want it to be a broad church, but it can't fit all those people in, and that's where they've made that mistake. It's what Labour went through, but Labour was never in government.
Yeah, they weren't on the stage. They were opposition.
They were in opposition. So their failures happened through that whole saga with Jeremy Corbyn and stuff like that, which in hindsight were like, Corbyn had the answers. Do you know what I mean?
Trust me, I would happily go straight back there, mate.
Exactly.
But this is the thing. Do you think, because that's easy to say in hindsight, and, you know, the real me, when I'm not having conversations with you, would be like, yeah, Corbyn to the end. However, when I'm thinking critically, if he was given that option, would he have been good?
I think in hindsight, it's the fact, on point blank, his policies for the UK are the things that we have to pursue. I remember ever since lockdown, that's when he announced he wanted the Wi-Fi for everyone was like, brother, what kind of a mad person wants free Wi-Fi everywhere? When lockdown happened, everyone was like, oh, there's a digital divide, so we actually need to install Wi-Fi areas, all that kind of stuff. However, politics is as much about, as we said, the art of politicking than it is about the policies. Yeah. You need to create a sense of confidence in people. People need to, you need to embody the leadership.
Yeah, but I feel confident in him. As in, what he stands for makes me feel confident. Yeah. So why is that not what people want?
Because your checklist is different to other people's checklist.
This is the issue.
That is,
This is it. Yeah. So I'm now posing another question to you. We've gone completely off agenda and I love it. I'm now posing another question to you, which is, in the future, because there's going to be more people like me, because the major thing that what I like about him is things that he wanted, or his policies, speak to a younger audience. Like, I understand the importance of Wi-Fi. Before COVID, I knew why it's important. So I'm on that. Do you know what I mean? For example. And then I think he said some stuff about race before as well. I love that. So I'm on that. Again, for me, I'm like, yes, Corbyn, let's go. And then older people may not feel the same, because they have different entry points and they care about different things, and also the position that they're in life, like money-wise. He might not be talking about things to do with businesses and money and that kind of stuff, and I don't mind that, because where I'm at in life, it doesn't affect me. But there's other older people that it does affect, because they have got businesses and all the rest of it. So as these older people hang up their boots, and there are younger people coming through, such as yourselves of the future, will things change? Because you just said politics need to be politicking as well.
Yeah, politicking.
And that kind of politicking works well for the younger audience.
Yeah, it does.
So do you reckon that's coming?
It's coming in the sense that I feel like young people have a lot more reason to be highly politically engaged.
Yes.
It's to the point where it's almost resembling those 70s eras where you grow up in certain times where it's like, we seem very political when we read it in history, but what we were going through means that we all were against the Vietnam War, for example, and we all had to be against certain things, or the Cold War. That's why everyone in the 80s and 70s seems political. Then you get to a period of time, maybe the 90s, where people aren't necessarily as political. No, nothing. Maybe internationally, but not. And then you get to like a recession, then everyone's political again. So I think in this context of the environment, doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon.
COVID just
happened. You've got the legacy of Brexit. We're so political, and then on top of that, we're now getting into people from underrepresented backgrounds are now even getting into certain spaces where we can add the dimension to that area.
That's
so like when tech came, it was a tech convo, but now it's like tech inclusivity, tech is racist. It got now it's a whole nother so now there's so much more things to talk
and
about.
Also as well, even this conversation I'm having, if I think of my parents at this age, they wouldn't have even been at the point I'm at. Not to diminish their intelligence or anything like that, but what I know about what's happening in Iran, for example, they may not have known. Unless it was something in their own countries that they have family members in and whatever, they wouldn't have known those things. Do you know what I mean? There's things I even speak to my mum about now that affected literally her own culture, background, whatever, she don't know about. And it happened in the time where she was like my age, probably. She doesn't know. And that's because her only way of knowing would have been people telling her, and they didn't want to talk about it because it was upsetting. So we don't know now. Do you know what I mean? And we can bypass all of that. I don't have to speak to my entry points. Let's say an entry point to the Caribbean might be my dad from Trinidad. I don't have to speak to my dad to know what's going on there. I can Google it, or I can see it I can follow an Instagram page to tell me about it. So do you feel like that is good? That like now younger people have way more accessibility, or do you think it paves too much way for the clickbait side of things where we don't actually have the full image?
I feel like, I think it comes back to my age old, when I try and weigh things up about the future, I'm always like, is it about how many people are in the know, or how much opportunity there is to distort the truth? And depending on which one is more important, it's like, do I care about less people knowing, but the truth is the truth, so everyone knows pure truths? Or do I care about more people having a part of the truth, but it's only a part of the truth, but at least there's more people in its consciousness? Does that make sense? So I feel like they're just as good as bad as each other. And that's where I feel like not much has happened.
Okay.
Because I think the good side right now is that even though not a lot of people don't know, we are arguing that if more people knew, there'll be a better outcome.
Yeah.
So there's still the hope of a better outcome to convince people that please educate everybody because X, Y, Z. However, if now more people know, but the information is false and people act mad, essentially, you're now given a reason for people to never give us that information again, because they're going to say, when we did give it to you guys, look what you did with it.
But the information is false, though.
But that's the thing. But they were like, you never specified. Do you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, what are we seeking? Knowledge. Knowledge is a subjective concept.
It is. Yeah, you're right.
You just said you wanted to be more transparent, but I'm going to allow you to see all our processes, but not to give you the logic behind it.
That's it.
So now I'm hearing all this stuff. Number one, when I'm hearing it, it's coming through who? My echo chamber. Now the echo chamber is teaching me. I'm only going to hear it with emotion. Now, the first time I heard about you is that you're a racist person, or you're a sexist person, or you're this or that and the other. My judgment's made. I could never come to you diplomatically about anything to do with you, because I've been told I can't even go. It's like me trying to reconceptualize certain people in society where it's written off, like you can't. Yeah. Where are you going with that?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you haven't even got the skill set to analyze that information. You're just getting information. The history behind that information, the person's agenda who told you that information is what? And then also, are you seeking other information to complement that information? It's like discussing Brexit in the confines of Brexit isn't helpful. You need to look at Brexit as a general topic as European history.
Yeah.
But if you look at Brexit because you're starting with, let me learn Brexit, you're going to learn this much of a wider concept. If you read the wider concept, you might have got to this point. But you coming to this point means that it's assuming that if you had read all that stuff, you would have met me here. But if you read all that stuff and you're now here, we would never have met. Do you get what I'm coming from in that way? So it's difficult to even be like, well, I don't know where it would take me. So what I do think we need to do though is just make sure that we are very much aware that the information we're getting is information that is more or less planted there. And the low-hanging fruit of information, we should never clap for. Always be wary about the fact that I know this, it means that I'm not even scratching the surface. Think about all the unknowns. So if you think you can pick up a book and read the truth, you think that they would have banned that book.
That's it.
That book would be banned.
This is the extra side of it as well, because I have the same conversation with like the previous series I did about fertility and women, and me even you have had this conversation. And every time I see you, I say, "Are you tracking your periods?" And even today, I'm not going to repeat what you said. She said, "I put it in a group chat, so that's how I track it." I know. So literally, this is this is what I'm saying, in a sense of there is a general malaise of the hanging fruit going for that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like people don't have the effort to go and read the book or seek out that book that might not be easy. And I speak about, I'm in this category as well. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to put the news on. I'd rather just listen to what you say on Instagram. And that is lazy, because even though you're doing the work, you can't grab every single perspective, and you can't grab the perspective that speaks most to me. And that's what I need to get. And so that requires me doing the work, which I'm not doing, and then I'm going to complain and be like, there's no one here for me. And it's like, well, you're not doing the work. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I think we better leave it there. That's the first episode. Thank you so much. And next episode, we're going to be focusing a bit more on social media. Even though we've touched on it here, we're going to go on a bit more. Thank you for listening up to this point. Please like, share, subscribe. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else you get your podcasts. Follow the Instagram page. Follow her page at the Sarah Twins, right? Yeah. And see you next episode. Bye.